park right now when you come to church on Sunday mornings. This is where we do much of our thinking about values and about spirituality. It's where we do our Bible readings and personal devotions and prayer time. It's the gear that we use when we pick a novel and we head to the hammock, or we sit on a park bench and we watch the sunset. Park. Now you should know, before we go on to the second gear, that there is a huge difference between leisure and rest. There's a difference between leisure and rest. Our culture places a high priority on leisure and leisure activities. In fact, if you guys want to make money, if you want to be rich, I would say get into some activity that peddles leisure activities, or even the lifestyle or the dream of leisure. That's where money is to be made. Because, we'll spend money on fishing lures that we don't even have time to go fishing. We'll spend money on golf clubs when we have hardly any time to make it to the driving range or the golf course. Leisure is where it's at. But there's a huge difference between leisure and rest. Most leisure activities aren't conducive to rest. Leisure activities don't bring that refreshment in our souls that we need. And so we fill our free time with leisure activities thinking that they're going to fill us up, but we're left wanting. And some of you haven't realized this, and your families and you are paying a price as a result. You're giving your kids, you're giving yourself leisure, when what you really need, what God designed you for, are periods of rest. You've got to put yourself in park. Second gear is low. And it's the gear that we use for relationships, connecting with family, with friends. And it's the gear that we use that prevents us from being distracted by a vibrating BlackBerry or by a chiming iPhone before the end of our conversation. It's the gear that we use when our children ask us if we can tell them a story. It's the gear that we use when our children have to be explained about the death of a pet, or have questions about sex, or have questions about God. There's no hurry here. It's just quality time. Low. Park, low. Third gear is drive. And drive is the gear that we use for work and play. This is the gear that uses lots of energy. Obviously, drive is going to require more energy than park or low. But the funny thing is, it feels good to exert energy. It makes us feel productive. We get places quicker when we exert this energy. And this is the gear that we use when we mow the lawn or when we exercise and so forth. And then the last gear is overdrive. And it's obviously, as the name suggests, it's a special gear that's reserved for those emergency situations, those times when we've got to dig a little deeper and work a little harder, maybe to make a deadline, or you've got an assignment due at school, you're playing a hockey game and you're making a burst for a goal. You use your overdrive gear. It's the gear that I tend to use most at Christmas and Easter when we've got extra services and we know we're going to have a lot of guests and we're doing more community projects. It's the gear that many of you with young families use on Sunday mornings to get ready to come to church. All right, that's overdrive. Unfortunately, many people in our society never shift down from overdrive. And just as the oil in your car, you see it in all those silly car commercials, right? The oil in your car breaks down quicker if you're constantly running it at the highest RPM. Your spirit and your body will break down quicker if you're constantly revving it up in overdrive. So why do we do it? Yeah. Well, we do it because we think it gets us ahead. We think it gets us ahead. And I think in the short run it may. But eventually it catches up with us. Show me a person who's living their life in overdrive, and I'll show you someone who's failing in one or more areas of his or her life. Someone who's failing. You see, what makes life difficult isn't our career, or if you're a student, your education. That's not what makes life difficult. In fact, if your career or your education was the only thing that you had to put attention into, the only thing that required your focus, I think that all of us who were willing and who desire this could achieve excellence if you only have that one thing to focus on. What makes life difficult is it's never just one thing. We're constantly managing, juggling, balancing multiple and seemingly competing priorities in our lives, like career, education, family, emotions, church, our diet and nutrition, exercise, rest, service, and involvement in civic duties in the community. And no one can achieve excellence in all 10 or 11 of those areas simultaneously all the time. Nobody can. It's just impossible. And the sad truth is this, that often the people that we hail as leaders and as role models because they're excelling in one area like career, right, or education, are failing in other areas that we may not see, like their family, or their nutrition, or their exercise, or attending to their souls. Here's a chart for everyone who strives for excellence in career. You can see there, out of a possible 15, this individual is scoring a 14 on their career. So they're making their career their primary focus. But you can see there are three areas that they're failing. They're failing when it comes to family, they're failing when it comes to exercise, and they're failing when it comes to rest. Now, rather than strive for this perfectionism, this excellence, I want to suggest to you this morning that you strive for balance. And this second chart will give you a picture of what that might look like. So, somebody changed my numbers. Anyway, that's okay. So career there is just below a 10, right? Still, I would say respectable, but not near as high as the person who makes their career their sole objective in life. And then next to career, you've got all these other priorities, but you can notice here, even though the career is lower, which is the one negative of striving for balance, as opposed to striving for perfection or excellence in career alone, there are two other positives that are noteworthy here. First one is this person's not failing in any area. They're not failing anywhere. The second one is their average scores, their average rank across the other 9 areas is higher than the person who strives for excellence or perfection in career alone. So it gives you an example of 2 different ways a person can live. And I want to commend to you the way of balance as you start in this busy season again. And I believe that there are several Bible passages that promote going this balance route. In the first book of the Bible, in Genesis, we discover that immediately after God created the universe, He rested on the 7th day. And God didn't rest on the 7th day because He was tired. He didn't rest because His bucket was empty. He rested to enjoy His good creation. He rested because, as the Creator, He knew that it was good for the soul. That's the first book of the Bible. And it's fitting that because God starts there, that we start there as well. Second book of the Bible, Exodus. God knew that this value of rest and balance would be important for us. And He knew, too, that because of our sinful nature, because of our greed or pride or whatever else in our life, we wouldn't find resting very easy. He instituted this command in Exodus 20, verse 8 and following. God's Word. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Work 6 days and do everything you need to do, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to God, your God. Don't do any work, for it is a day for rest. And God's intentions that we rest were so extensive that they included not just people, but land and animals and all of life. And then we jump a bit further into one of the wisdom books in the Bible, and we read this in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. There's an opportune time to do things, a right time for everything on earth, a right time for every activity on earth.